Just came across this book, An Unfinished Life, John Kennedy, 1970 to 1963 by Robert Dallek. This is the back cover, and in it it's written, "One of the most engrossing biographies I've ever read. An Unfinished Life is nothing less than a masterpiece." And that's written by David Herbert Donald, who's the author of Lincoln. Everywhere acclaimed for its compelling narrative, its fresh insight, and its dispassionate appraisal of John F. Kennedy's presidency, this #1 national bestseller is the first full-scale, single-volume biography of JFK to be written by a historian in nearly 4 decades, drawing on previously unavailable material and never-before-opened archives. An Unfinished Life is packed with revelations, large and small, about John F. Kennedy's health, his love affairs, RFK's appointment as Attorney General, what Joseph Kennedy did to help his son win the White House, and the path John F. Kennedy would have taken in the Vietnam entanglement had he survived. Robert Derrick succeeds as no other biographer has done in striking a critical balance, never shying away from JFK's weaknesses, brilliantly exploring his strengths as he offers up a vivid portrait of a bold, brave, complex, heroic, human Kennedy. On the back cover, this is his picture, Robert Dallek. He's one of the most highly regarded historians in America today, winner of the Bancroft Prize as well as numerous other awards. Through the past 4 decades, he has taught at several major universities, among them Columbia, UCLA, Oxford, and Boston University. That's the ISBN number. So I'm reading from the Extraordinary Praise for Robert Dallek's An Unfinished Life of John F. Kennedy. John Freeman, Atlanta Journal-Constitution writes, armed with a slew of new material from the Kennedy archives, most notably the President's medical records, Dallek paints a vast and lavish portrait of JFK as a flawed but heroic man, a man driven into politics by necessity, who had all the benefits of wealth but still faced incredible obstacles. The details of Kennedy's early life are well known, but Dallek renders them fresh here with a brisk, uncluttered narrative style. It's a very interesting read. And David J. Garrow, New York Times writes, an impressively judicious and balanced account of John F. Kennedy's life and presidency. An excellent biography. So I'm reading a little more of the praise. It's written, Susan Page writes from USA Today, with a scholar's instinct and a teacher's cadence, Dallek found both tantalizing disclosures about JFK's personal life and a more measured assessment of presidential legacy. And his portrait, Dallek's portrait, is engaging and sympathetic, showing JFK as heroic in the face of suffering, and is the best of this year's crop, writes Andrew Cohen from Toronto Globe and Mail. And there are many more. You must get the book to see what it is. So, thought by William Butler Yeats, written here. Think where man's glory most begins and ends, and say, my glory was, I had such friends. By William Butler Yeats. So I read from the preface a little bit. As with all our most interesting public figures, Kennedy is an elusive character, a man who, like all politicians, worked hard to emphasize his favorable attributes and hide his limitations. He and those closest to him were extraordinarily skillful at creating positive images that continue to shape public impressions. My objective has not been to write another debunking book, but to penetrate the veneer of glamour and charm to reconstruct the real man, or as close to it as possible, he writes. So Robert Derrick writes that I believe this biography provides the most authoritative discussion to date on Kennedy, the man, and his political career. Nonetheless, however much it may be a significant advance in understanding, I have no illusion that I am recording the last word on John F. Kennedy. The economist Thorstein Veblen was surely right when he cautioned that the outcome of any serious research can only be to make two questions grow where one question grew before. Add to this the man's almost mythical importance to Americans and hundreds of millions of people around the globe, and you can be certain that future generations will be eager for renewed attention to him in the context of their own times. So chapter 1, you have this quote by George Bernard Shaw. So John F. Kennedy, who quoted this, and it is George Bernard Shaw speaking as an Irishman, summed up an approach to life. I dream things that never were, and I say, why not? So John F. Kennedy before the Irish Parliament on June 28, 1963. So in the book there are some of the pictures also, and one is of his grave in Arlington National Cemetery with the eternal flame. And here I read from page 503, showing that he did have good sense of humor. In March 1962, after Teddy announced his Senate candidacy, a journalist told Kennedy that Teddy had said on television that after seeing the cares of office on you, he wasn't sure he'd ever be interested in being the president. I wonder if you could tell us whether if you had it to do over again, you would work for the presidency, and whether you can recommend the job to others? Kennedy replied, well, the answer is to the first, yes, and the second is no. I don't recommend it to others. And then he laughs, at least for a while. And I'm reading from the epilogue, which says, all the myth-making, positive and negative about Kennedy would not have interested him as much as a fair-minded assessment of his public career. He would probably have been less than happy that biographers had unearthed so much of the truth about his private life, nor would he have had any illusions that historians would be of one mind about his policies and actions. He understood that history, as a great Dutch historian Peter Dell asserted, is an argument without end. In October 1961, he told scholars editing the John Adam papers how difficult it is ever to get to the bone of truth on any great historical controversy. All the debate generated by his congressional and especially presidential careers would not have surprised him. So he writes that Kennedy's greatest achievement as president were his management of Soviet-American relations, with his effectiveness in discouraging a U.S. military mindset that accepted the possibility, indeed even likelihood, of a nuclear war with Moscow. And Kennedy came to the presidency after his experience in World War II with a negative bias towards the military, and that was only strengthened by Eisenhower's July 17, 1961 warning about the military industrial complex and his own experience with Laos, the Bay of Pigs, the Cuba Missile Crisis, etc. The sudden end of Kennedy's life and presidency has left us with tantalizing might-have-beens. Yet even setting these aside and acknowledging some missed opportunities and false steps, it must be acknowledged that the Kennedy 1,000 Days spoke to the country's better angels, inspired visions of a less divisive nation and world, and demonstrated that America was still the last best hope of mankind. And reading from An Unfinished Life, 701 page. The assassination of Kennedy's martyrdom no doubt remains the most important factors in perpetuating high public regard for his leadership and importance as a president. But this alone cannot explain his popularity. In 1941, 40 years after William McKinley, who had been among the small number of presidents elected twice, was assassinated, he was on an all but forgotten chief. The advent of television, which captured Kennedy's youthful appearance, good looks, charm, wit, and rhetorical idealism and hope, also contributed to his ongoing appeal. The public's faith in Kennedy's sincerity is an additional element in his continuing hold on the country in an era of public cynicism about politicians as those who are stage managed and often insincere. Kennedy's remembered forthrightness strengthens his current appeal. So in an era of public cynicism about politicians as posers who are stage managed, often insincere, Kennedy's remembered forthrightness strengthens his current appeal. These attributes have encouraged a belief that had he lived, the United States would have avoided many of the problems it suffered under Johnson and Nixon during the 1960s and 70s. With that, I come to the end of my telling you how good it is. You must read the book, and the style is good. It's an easy read with a lot of historical events. It's like going through those events once again, and you can connect the dots of the world history after reading this. So there we go.